President's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, pressed Ukrainian authorities to investigate Burisma, the country's largest national gas producer, and the Bidens.
What we will witness today is a televised theatrical performance.
I also said I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with the political campaign.
It became clear to me that Giuliani's efforts to gin up politically motivated investigations were now infecting U.S. engagement with Ukraine.
What you heard did not happen. It didn't happen.
All right, there you go. Those were just some of the exchanges from the first day of the public impeachment hearings in Washington. Our panel obviously has a lot to weigh in on. We are joined from Washington by Joseph Moreno, former federal national security prosecutor, and Elena Beverly, a former Obama White House official. And from Columbus, Ohio, we have Republican strategist Jay Shabria. So full disclosure, everybody, I tried to watch much of the impeachment inquiry. I found it bombastic, sometimes boring, definitely dense in places. And I'm wondering, Joe, as a former federal prosecutor, what's the job that the Democrats had to do today? And we'll get to all of you in terms of whether you think they did it. But what did they have to accomplish?
Sure. I think there were probably two goals here. One was to build a methodical case with very solid witnesses to establish the foundation of where the Democrats are taking this, which is effectively an abuse of office, extortion, bribery type allegation. And in that respect, they did well. I think the second priority is to try to not just gain the attention of the American public, but also to shift the opinion of those that are still undecided on this president. There, I think they probably fell short. It was a solid day, but with the exception of a few little things that we learned, I don't think there were any bombshells or anything that would change the mind of someone who was already predisposed to support the president.
Okay, so Elena, I'm wondering if you were wincing or nodding today.
I was nodding in the beginning. So I think the format of these hearings were actually brilliant in that they set up a forum where the witnesses could provide opening remarks followed by 45 minutes of questioning, as opposed to what we've seen in recent history in terms of the testimony before the House Oversight, where it's 5 minutes Democrat, 5 minutes Republican. So I thought there was an opportunity here to feel Bill Taylor and George Kent and see them as statesmen, as patriots who have served this country, and to demonstrate that their character is in such stark contrast to Donald Trump's and to the evidence that we are hearing, that we heard come out today.
But, you know, Jay, I'm thinking that Republicans, every time I tuned in, they were continuing to hammer the point that, look, there's no harm, no foul. Ukraine got its aid. The investigation into the Bidens did not happen. Was that a smart strategy to keep pushing that message?
Well, look, from the Republican standpoint, what their goal is to try to muddy the water, try to say this is not a big deal, it's boring, it's complicated, and I think they're succeeding in that sense. Democrats have a really high bar, and I think what Joe said on the second point is really important. This is not just a impeachment hearing. This is being tried in the court of public opinion. People out here in Columbus, Ohio, people all around the country, they have to really care about this. And that's the question. Are they caring? I'm not so sure they are. Look, there's been a Kavanaugh hearing. There was the Mueller hearings. And now there's the impeachment hearings. There's a lot of noise in Washington. And I'm not sure that the American public, I don't know if the world public really understands what this is about. And that's what Democrats have to do. And I don't know that they've succeeded so far.
Well, I mean, you actually sound like you could have been on that floor today, because some of that language is what we heard from the Republicans. There's a lot of outrage from them today, and I'm wondering, who's that for? Who do you think that's for? Is that for the American people, or are they playing to an audience of one with the president? Elena?
Oh, I think it's for both. It's both for the American people and for the audience of one, to show Donald Trump that they are still stalwartly with him. But in terms of the American public, my good friend Garrett Haake actually said that it wasn't the goal of the Republicans to change minds. It was simply to get people to change the channel. And so on those moments where you saw the Republicans interrupting the process, on the moments when you saw the Republicans challenging the credibility of these two patriots who have come forth, and the moments when you saw the Republicans calling out and requiring a vote on whether or not the whistleblower could come forward, that was all to take the level to a shrill pitch, such that people would turn the channel and lose interest.
Can anyone help us understand here, why did the Democrats start with these two witnesses? You have the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor, George Kent of the State Department. Are these really the marquee witnesses?
I think that they are marquee fact witnesses. I mean, as you saw today, Bill Taylor introduced new evidence of a call between Ambassador Sondland and Donald Trump, explaining that the only thing that Donald Trump was interested in was getting dirt and having the investigation on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. That was all that he was interested in. So we're still seeing facts come out from these two stellar witnesses. Also, as I mentioned before, they are unimpeachable in their conduct and in their service to the United States. Kent has over 50 years of service. Bill Taylor has over 27 years of service. They have served for multiple presidents on both sides of the aisle. And they are war veterans. Bill Taylor is a Vietnam veteran. You've seen these witnesses come forward who, when you see them, you recognize that there are people who have put their lives and career on the line in service of the Constitution, and that this is one more step for them.
Jay, I sense you have something to say about that.
Well, one of the things that they talked a lot about today, and it's really confusing to me, is they talked about the foreign policy decisions the president and the executive branch made. I think it conflates what this is all about. They're saying it's quid pro quo, but then they're going on and saying that he's changing the way in which foreign policies run. That's bad for Ukraine. And you can agree with that. That's a very valid viewpoint. But is that impeachable? I don't know. I'm not sure that's the case.
Joe, in the opening statement of this whole inquiry today, the leading Republican, Devin Nunes, said he wants a whistleblower to be outed and to testify. And forgive me if I'm not getting this, but why does the whistleblower's identity or testimony matter? Is it not like saying unless you hear from the witness who called 911, then there's no case?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people feel it's really a red herring at this point, right? Like, what's the point of the whistleblower? Because we have the reported transcript of the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky. We have much, hopefully maybe all, of the key facts that underlie the case here. So what's the point of bringing the whistleblower's identity other than to retaliate against him? On the flip side, though, there is an argument, and a valid one, that all of this did spring from the whistleblower. And if we're going to impeach and potentially remove a president, which has never been done in this country's history, shouldn't we at least hear from the person that started this whole thing? There's also reports that the whistleblower does have some firsthand information. And of course, the more evidence that you gather, the better for any kind of case. So I think there's an argument that the person has information that perhaps should be heard, but at the same time, people have to be really careful, because retaliation against whistleblowers is a very serious thing, and that can backfire big time.
All right, Jay, what do you think about that?
Look, I think the Republicans are trying to throw as much smoke up and trying to muddy the water. I think that is what their strategy really is. But you've got to remember, and one of the questions you asked earlier is, who is the audience to? Is it to the American people, or is it to an audience of one of the president? I actually think it's to the base. And both parties do this now. It's to their bases, their Republican base and their Democratic base. It used to be in this country 10 years ago that everything was about getting the moderates and getting the independent voters to try to convince them. That's not what this is all about anymore. So the strategy here for both the Republicans and the Democrats is play to your base. That's what we need to do to win and get them out to vote.
Elena, do you see a danger in trying to get the whistleblower, to out the whistleblower?
Oh, absolutely. I think that this is an intimidation tactic. I think it's also an example of the Republicans not having a coherent strategy. One is to say, okay, let's point the finger at the whistleblower and let's call that whistleblower, he or she, say that they are never Trumpers, and try to get them in front of the public and expose them, which is dangerous precedent going forward. We need to protect the identity of whistleblowers, but I would also say that the lack of coherent strategy also lent itself to everything but saying that what Donald Trump did was not a quid pro quo.
So as an outsider, this all just looks pretty predictable, that Democrats have decided already they will vote to impeach him, and should it get as far as the Senate, Republicans just won't permit that to be removed. So what do you think, Joe, it will take to alter that predetermined course?
I think it would take a radical revelation of new evidence that would greatly turn public opinion to the point where Republicans are worried about their home districts and how it's going to reflect if they vote against impeachment in the House or against a conviction in the Senate. And I think that short of something that, again, is mind-blowingly different to change this narrative, I don't think that's going to happen. I think people's opinions are very much baked in. You didn't see one Republican vote to initiate the impeachment process, and I don't think you're going to get more than maybe one or two Republicans in the Senate if it goes that far to a trial. So I think that the opinions are baked in Congress, opinions are baked in very much among the American people, and sort of moving the goal line at this point is going to be very, very difficult.
Elena?
I don't disagree with Joe. I do think that it requires some sort of explosive evidence, but as we saw today, new evidence is being unearthed every single day and with every single hearing. And again, this is just day one.
All right, three of you, thank you very much. Joseph Moreno, Elena Beverly, and Jay Shabria.